Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's Dealer On webinar, How to Leverage Your Telephone for Double-Digit Growth. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'll be your moderator today, and today's webinar is being presented by Dealer On. And for anyone who isn't familiar with Dealer On, well, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency, and we're best known for our amazing SEO, our best-in-class customer service, and our award-winning website designs, including the newly launched Chameleon Responsive website platform. We're so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that Dealer On is still the only company in the industry to offer a money-back lead guarantee program. So, does your website company guarantee you a 50% lift in leads? Well, maybe you should check us out at dealeron.com. And we have a great show in store for you today. We're so very pleased to have Jack Behar as our presenter today. Jack Behar is the president and CEO of Interactive Tel, the leading provider of interactive communication solutions for the automotive industry, whose call tracking can record every inbound phone call, outbound phone call, fax, mobile call, and text message for every salesperson in the dealership. His company's comprehensive communication capture provides clients with large amounts of data that can be mined for KPIs, opportunity salvage, issue identification and tracking, training, customer service, and much more. Prior to Interactive Tel, Jack was Vice President of Sales for Total Communications, the fifth largest voice and data integrator in the United States. With over 30 years of high-growth technology and telecommunications industry experience, Mr. Behar has also held executive positions with the largest telephony companies in the United States, including AT&T and TCI, where he oversaw $1.2 billion in assets. Jack is a highly respected member of the automotive community, and he can be reached at jbehar@interactivetel.com. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, don't worry. We'll respond by email later today. Also, don't forget, a link to download a copy of this webinar recording will also be emailed to you later today for your reference, and please feel free to share it with friends and colleagues. And guess what? Our good friends at Interactive Tel are giving away an amazing prize today on the webinar. One of you lucky webinar attendees is going to win a Hero 3 Plus GoPro digital camera. This prize is valued at $350, and I wish I was eligible to win this prize. I'm not, but you are. All you have to do is stay tuned for details after Jack's presentation, and you could be walking away with this awesome prize today. Also, at the conclusion of this webinar, you're going to receive a short survey. So please fill it out, because we're always looking for great feedback from our audience. Today, we're going to randomly select a couple of people from all the completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. So let's get started. Let's learn how to leverage your telephone for double-digit growth. Jack B., how you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you. What a great introduction.
You're very kind. I am so glad to finally be webinaring with you. We were just covering this a few minutes ago, that you and I have known each other for a number of years, and it's our first webinar together. And I have to say also, we've done a number of webinars about telephone process, what to do when you get a sales call. We've done a number of those, but I've never actually done a webinar specifically about the dealership telephone and how to make it work harder for you. So I'm really excited to see what kind of interesting things you're going to lay down on us. So why don't you get started? What are the kinds of things we're going to be learning about today?
Awesome. That sounds great. So first, let me thank everyone, and good day, depending on if you're on the East, Central, Mountain, or the West Coast. And probably the reason why we haven't done one, because of my background, being in the industry or in the telephony industry for almost 30 years, I'm kind of in the car business as an antique. So we're going to click on and learn some pretty cool things today. And as you can see, the phone system or your telephone has been around for almost 2 centuries. And I think this is a great picture of what it was like when I started. You know, the joke of the industry is that I used to date Ma Bell. So with that much knowledge, I'm going to do my very best just to give everybody on the webinar some information that you may or may not know about your phone system. And I've listened to a few webinars, and there's some great people talking about processes and how they can help with dealerships. But today I just want to give you the meat and potatoes of what's going on. So we're going to talk about the power of the telephone. We're going to talk about holding people accountable and how to measure results from the information that comes from the phone. And today, I guess the phone has changed dramatically since we have landline, we have mobile, we have communication devices, SMS. But all in all, every minute of the day that we come to work, I always believe that our fingers should be working. When I was with AT&T, it was mandatory. We wanted to capture everything that happens within our divisions, which helped us grow our business immensely. And here's the question I always get asked when I speak to an owner. He always wants to know what's going on in his store, his dealership, or his group. And there's so much information. There's CRM, DMS. There's so many different reports. But at the end of the day, he wants to see, are we selling more or are we stagnating? And what needs to be done? So hopefully today everyone takes away just a little bit more than what they knew before I came on the call. And for most of you, you probably may have not heard of our company, but we're the ones that build a lot of the telephony applications for different companies in the CRM space, in automotive and outside of automotive. So our name isn't a household name yet, but hopefully everybody on this call will help us. And I'll also talk about some of the tools that can create growth. So I want to thank Ma Bell for this, but the phone is probably the most underutilized tool in the business. People think that, there's so many other things called the internet and there's other sources that they use to make a sale. But at the end of the day, I was in a seminar and I took 5 owners' emails, and during the seminar, I had all of them text that their phone system went down, and you should have seen how fast they ran to the door. From a salesperson's perspective, I've been in the sales space for 30 years, and I can tell you, salespeople hate using the phone. But today, I want to talk about the journey of the call. How do we follow that call from the time it gets in, regardless where it came from? Whether it's a lead, whether it's somebody calling about something they saw in the newspaper, but you got to have a mechanism to follow that journey from a single call. The call came in from AutoTrader. When it started at AutoTrader, where did it finish? Who had the call? Was it followed up properly? Did they call back? Did they come in? And obviously, hopefully, this seminar will turn more leads into sales. And last but not least, while we're talking about sales, I got to tell you, the telephone in your service department should be like husband and wife, since they spend more time on the phone than anybody else. And they're probably one of your best sources for leads, because they know everything about your existing customer. And I'm sure everybody knows that. So I want to hit up on some community demographics. Where do your calls come from? Do you know that if they're coming from 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles away? Have you done an analysis to see where your activity comes from? And when I talk to owners or BDC managers, sales managers, I always ask that. And the response I get usually is they're within a 10 to 15 mile radius, which tells me that most people may see something online, they may see something in a newspaper, but they're more likely going to walk through your door than they're going to pick up a phone. So which means that the very first time that phone is going to go into operation is going to be on a follow-up, which means your salesperson has to be really good at creating an interest. And talking about the interest, and I'm just putting up some slides right now about opportunities, where they come from, whether they're leads, website walk-ins, current customers, be-backs, etc. We all want to do one thing. We want to make a sale. And when I start showing you some of this data, I think immediately you're going to get some ideas on how to really create that double-digit growth by using the telephone. Because the lead, the website, the walk-in, the current customer, they're not calling in yet. I should say that you're creating a reason for them to pick up the phone and call you. Because I see something on a website, I'm going to call about it. I may click on a form. I want more information. We're going to call them. I walk in. I got to follow up. Obviously, I'm a current customer. I'm in the service drive, or I'm looking to upgrade my car. My lease is over. I want to give you guys a call. I had great experience. I want to get somebody communicating with me. A long time ago, a trainer told me the goal of a great salesperson is let's play ball with a prospect. As long as we can have some kind of communication, we can then lead them to what they really want to do. Everybody's afraid to make a decision. And in the process of that, objections come out. And that always is a challenge. How do we handle those objections? Are we good on the phone? Do we rely too much on our management? So the makeup of your dealership. How experienced are your reps? Do the reps rely on the opportunities, or do they rely on the manager to close the opportunities? How educated are your reps on the products? Is your rep a car guy? Does he know the car industry? Can we call him? Is he good enough to really communicate with that prospect that you're spending a phenomenal amount of money in your marketing budget for leads? I think in the automotive industry, it's probably one of the most highest expenditures is marketing, and to make that phone ring. So do we have the right people? Are we training them properly? And I think this is why I put it in bold, what do they sound like? Do you have the tools to listen when they're calling someone back? Are they just delivering the information that was given to them by the management, or they really can build a rapport to bring them in? I had the pleasure of sitting with the top Infinity salesperson in the country at Digital Dealer last week. And it was really interesting listening to him talk about other industries, other manufacturers, other dealerships, and what made him successful. And what made him successful is that he feels that he can pick up the phone and speak to almost anybody about his product and his brand. And he can distinguish himself against his competition because he knows the product and he's really good in communicating it. And that could be in his voice, in his knowledge, in his tone. But this is what the telephone does. The telephone helps you with this if you have the tools to measure and monitor the information. And obviously, I never leave out the service advisor. When I talk to owners and I talk to service managers, they're as interested in the service advisor as they are in the salesperson. They want tools to help and monitor what the service advisor is saying. Because let's face it, after the sale is made, the service advisor is going to live with that customer for the next 3 to 5 years. So it's really important that they are really good in communicating versus saying, hey, your car's ready, and we fix this and we fix that, versus making recommendations to either migrate to another vehicle or looking at making sure that customer service is priority one. This is probably the slide that's probably the most important in this presentation, because today I just want to deliver information that we capture. So what we have done is I've taken a pool for everyone on how many calls come into a dealership based on the number of cars they sell. And there are appliances, there are CTI integration with the phone systems that tell us this information. And I'm really curious at the end of the presentation how many people know this, or is this something that has a wow effect? So a dealership that sells 150 cars, they get about 12,000 to 14,000 calls a month. It's about 31,000 minutes, and they use about 2,000 minutes for call tracking. 300 cars sold, 30,000 calls per month, 58,000 minutes, 3,000 minutes for call tracking. 500,000, I'm sorry again, 500 sold. It's my eyes. You got to remember, I've been around since Ma Bell, so the eyes are the...
Yes, you used to date her. I heard this.
So the eyes are the first thing to go. And I can't get a bigger screen. I mean, this is as big as they're going to put in my office. 500 cars, 62,000 calls. I've seen it as high as 75 to 80,000, and an average of about 131,000 minutes. But think about that, folks. 62,000 calls come in and out of the dealership, and that's the whole dealership. So let me break that down a little bit. And I will break it down on the next slide. But that's sales, service, administration, parts, finance. It's every department. But you know, there's a lot of activity. It's driven from the internet. It's driven from walk-in. But you have all of this coming in on this device, on your phone. Just think about if you can dissect it and then start analyzing and looking at what people do. You can not only increase your sales and improve your service department, but you can also reduce downtime or wasted time that people spend just talking amongst themselves. You know, more and more people are told use your mobile phone when it's for personal reasons. But it's amazing when we do studies for our dealerships to show how much time is spent on personal. We went into one of the largest Toyota stores in the country 2 years ago, and the first month we did the analysis, they had 1,100 hours in personal calls. In the second month, they had 11. It was pretty amazing what people were on the phone doing, whether it was travel agencies, you know, breakups, whatever. But they were working. They were spending a lot of time on the phone. So there's a lot of information. And last but not least, for the dealership that sells over 1,000 cars a month, they average about 91,000 calls, 211,000 minutes, and they use about 20,000 minutes for call tracking. So this is a good synopsis, and you can almost average it out. It's anywhere between 2.5 and 4 minutes. The larger the dealership, you know, you may think there's a lot of calls being made from their BDC departments, but I really would think, or I would thought, before we started doing this analysis, that we would have more outbound than inbound calls. And unfortunately, and I'll say this strongly, unfortunately, that's not the case. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So with this slide, and basically when I started the presentation, I said I can do this without a PowerPoint, because this is the only slide to us that really matters. Because this tells you about your dealership. You can now do a quantitative analysis based on how much money you spend on advertising. And yes, you have, you know, I'm sure every advertisement that you guys are running has a call tracking number associated with it. But you can manipulate that by saying, if we looked at a dealership that's doing 500 cars sold, 62,000 calls per month, and they're only doing 8,000 minutes for call tracking, and if we break that down, which we will in a minute, how much more is happening with calls that are just coming into the dealership with people buying from the community because they drive by your dealership daily, and we're not capturing that. And if we're not capturing it, which means it's not going into the CRM unless we rely on a salesperson. And I've been out with enough CRM reps and talked to enough dealerships about CRM and how difficult it is to have sales reps enter data into the CRM. So there's a lot slipping through the cracks. If we can just harness this slide, the double-digit growth is there without doing anything else, without forklifting, changing, increasing. It's there. It's capturing what's taking place currently today in your dealership. So I'm going to leave the slide up for another 10 seconds, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to break it down a little bit. So if people want to take notes or wait for Ileana to send it to you, great.
I'm not going to send it to them.
But I didn't know if they get a copy of this slide or not, but I'd be happy to send it to whoever wants it. This is really, to me, this was eye-opening. And I've been in the business for 30 years and selling phone systems and selling tracking devices. And when I tell this to dealers, most dealers don't even believe me until it's in and we run the first month's report. And actually today, most dealers don't wait for a month. They start looking at it within a week, and they're asking questions. So dealership calls. Let's take a look at that. So here's a quick breakout. We took a couple of dealerships before the call, and we broke them out by the size of the dealership, the number of calls they make or receive, and this is the end result. I also went and asked other companies that we work with that are involved in telephony what they see. Some companies that monitor and listen to calls for dealerships. Some companies that just do call tracking. And this is, we're all in agreement, basically, that this is what your dealership looks like. And some can change. So if you're on the webinar and saying, well, that's not my dealership, it probably isn't. But for an average, if we took the 20,000 dealers that are out there, I would say this is going to be a good synopsis. So I took dealership A, sells 300 cars, 30,000 minutes, 3,000 minutes call tracking. And here's the part that boggled my mind. The sales. There's more inbound. There's more traffic coming in than out. And the first thing you're going to say, that's because everybody uses a mobile phone. I'm okay with that, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But if I'm at the dealership and I'm going to take people north of I want to say the South, meaning outside of California, Arizona, Texas, Alabama, and Florida, because people in the South, they spend an awful lot of time, and I think that I learned a new word, they're lot lizards. They sit outside most of the day because of our weather climate, and they wait for people to come in. They may or may not be using the phone properly, or they're just sitting out and baking in the sun. But I would have thought, hands down, that the outbound should have been 5 to 6 times more than the inbound. So, and I'll explain why in a minute. But this was a little mind-boggling. What makes the phone ring? Best business is one that the phone rings and someone wants to buy, and you guys are in it. You guys spend a tremendous amount of money on advertising, and the phone does ring. We've got the data. So if we analyze it, I think we're going to uncover some things we need to change within our dealership. If today we have sales managers, sales reps, BDCs, and owners, hopefully we can look at this and say, yes, there are some things we've got to start doing a little bit differently. It doesn't have to happen all at once. I tell dealers all the time, progression is the key to success. Don't do everything at once because nobody can grasp it all. But, the internet, people are going to call in from the internet, or you're going to call them back because they're requesting a call back. Newspapers. People don't buy from newspapers. Newspapers create the interest. Websites. Everybody's on your website. You want to know how many people are on by the hour, how long they stay on. You get all the Google Analytics. You're using all different types of tracking tools. I mean, companies have built multi-million-dollar companies from this technology. But again, it all goes back to what my ex-girlfriend started almost 200 years ago, Ma Bell. We've got to have that tool, and that tool has to be used the right way to empower everything that the marketing department is creating. We have equity tools, buying leads or data. I also wanted to put up a comparison of other industries, because not only have I been in telephony, but I work with other industries. I work with copier companies. They make 75 to 90 calls a day. When I ask an owner at a car dealership, how many calls do you expect the sales rep to make? They normally tell me anywhere around 30 to 50. They hope. And I'm like, 45 of those calls will be to voicemail. And then they say, well, then they'll text them. And we'll talk a little bit about mobile in a minute. Stockbroker makes almost 150 calls a day. A person who sells phone systems right out of my old neck of the woods, they make about 40 to 50 calls a day. Because nobody's spending the money that an automotive dealership spends in their marketing and their advertising. The yacht and broker sales. Well, not everybody's buying boats and yachts. And it's interesting. A low-end boat costs as much as a high-end car. So they don't have the activity, nor do they have the budget. Motorcycle. They call about 30 calls a day. So automotive has the biggest budget. They get the most calls. And I'm not sure if everybody's happy with the end result. Obviously, the owner will always say, we're never happy. We always want more. But I think that's true for any person in sales or service that's held to a budget or a P&L. They want more. And they're always going, we need to do more of this, or we need to buy more of this, and you have more people knocking down your door. But if nothing was going to change in your marketing, and you had the data at your fingertips from a phone, I think everybody on this call would say, I can make a big impact in my dealership. Immediately. Let's have a poll question.
All right, audience, you heard the man. We have 2 poll questions for you today, and the first one is on your screen now. We'd love to know what's going on at your dealership, and if you could answer this question for us. So the question is, are you currently tracking and recording all calls coming in and out of your dealership with seamless integration to your CRM? Ooh, that sounds like a lot. Please select one of the following answers. Is it, yes, we're doing all that and it's working great for us? Whereas the answer is yes, but we don't take full advantage of all the information we collect. What if at your dealership you're only tracking inbound calls and only on your toll-free numbers? Or how about not yet, we're thinking about it? Or how about no, but I'd love to have it? So, are you currently tracking and recording all calls coming in and out of your dealership? And do those calls seamlessly get integrated into your CRM? Once we get a majority of the votes in, we'll close the poll and we'll share those results. And you have one more poll question coming your way today. And audience, I want to thank you in advance for your participation in our poll questions. We really do appreciate it. And Jack, we already do have a lot of people who voted. Almost everyone's voted by now. So if you'd like, I'll close this poll and share the results. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, all right, let's go. Audience, like I said, thank you again. You rock. Here we go. Let's close this poll and share. Share the results. Okay. 0% of today's audience said yes and it's working for us. 29% of today's audience, about a third, said yes, we do that, but we admit we don't take full advantage of all the information that we collect. Now, nearly half of today's attendees, 46% of today's attendees said that they're only tracking inbound calls on their toll-free numbers. Interesting. 13% said not yet, but we're thinking about it. And another 13% said no, but I'd love to have it. Jack, what do you think?
I think the presentation is over, and I'm going to go see every one of these people right now.
Is that so? So it's not just enough to have all the recordings of the sales calls. Once you have all those recordings, what are you supposed to do with them and all that kind of stuff, all right? So the people who are tracking the inbound calls only on their toll-free numbers, advice for them?
Absolutely. And I have a slide that will talk about that.
Oh, okay. I don't want to interrupt your groove.
No, that's fine. The simple advice is it's time to go to the next level. And I think it's in my slide, but I do want to say something. And it goes back to the analysis that I did where I was surprised that there was more inbound than outbound. If we think about calling a customer, and this is in every industry, we have to call somebody 7 times before we can get through to them. It's just that difficult. And I'll sway it even a different way. If we have to call them 4 times or text them. So I would think if 7,000 calls came into the sales department, whether it's through call tracking, which does measure your marketing, and it also allows you to listen to how a salesperson handles a lead, something's not happening at the dealership. And it may be some of it goes to mobile, but if there were 7,000 calls coming into that dealership, there should have been 30,000 calls going out because people should be hungry. The problem with a lot of people, and I'm a buyer, so I buy cars, and I buy cars for my company. And the problem with a lot of salespeople, they become complacent. They're not aggressive, they're not hungry. There's another opportunity around the corner. But I do have a slide on call tracking. Actually, I have a few slides on call tracking and the difference between the two, and maybe looking at what they currently do versus what they can do may give them the necessary information to go to the next level. So I'm going to continue, and here's a slide about call tracking. All right, call tracking adds tremendous value to the entire dealership. Call recording software does far more than record the customer. It adds tremendous value to many parts of your dealership. Your market, it's for sales and marketing intelligence, and that's where your marketing department really needs to take a deep dive and see what's working and what's not working. Don't rely. All this should not be put on a sales manager. Sales manager needs to do one thing. He needs to drive those sales. So he needs help there. Customer defection rescue. Customers that are leaving because they had a bad experience. They don't want to come back to your dealership or your dealership group. And of course, customer service and compliance. And I'm going to talk a little bit about compliance later on. But that's something that's becoming more and more aware with the FTC changing the laws literally every 6 months on what we can and we can't do. And the last 3 months has been really exciting for us because and we're not lawyers, but we've been talking with different dealers. We've been talking to a bunch of folks at the FTC, understanding their changes and making sure that we inform the dealerships about them. Unfortunately, the dealerships don't react until a large dealership gets in trouble, like a Lithia or a Penske, something that shakes the boots of everybody. And I tell dealers, don't wait for that to happen, because it may not happen at Lithia, but it may happen at your store. So compliance is a big reason that you should have the complete total track solution at your dealership when it comes to tracking everything. Think about it. On the left-hand side, you really have your call tracking of your numbers, and they do a great job. They're going to tell you how many calls come in from your advertising sources. And there are certain venues in CRM that will help you track your sales outbound calls if you're using the CRM using a click-to-talk feature. But remember, you got to be married to that computer, and most salespeople today don't have computers on their desk. They go into a calling room for an hour and a half a day. So we're not giving them the tools, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But call measurement should be what you see up there. You should be able to have accountability for everything that happens. And then you can drill down. If Jack Behar is a top sales guy, well, let's leave him alone. Let's not rock that boat. That boat is sailing straight. But, if John Smith is having a hard time, well, now we can focus in on John. And we can turn around and say, all right, let's see how many calls he's making. Let's listen to some of those calls that he's making. Let's bring him in. Let's help him become better. Whether we have the infrastructure in-house or we go outside to a sales trainer, there are some great sales trainers in the automotive industry that's what they do. And the first thing a sales trainer comes in, what do they want to do? They want to listen to calls. The problem with listening to call tracking calls are 9 out of 10 of them are all about the lead. I would rather have my trainer listen to the call that I have to make after I have to follow up on that lead. Either if they're still interested, delivering, finance information, setting up a test drive. That's when the objections come in, and that's when we really need to know what's going on and critique them. So, to me, if you're going to do it, do it with the whole bowl, the whole kitchen sink. This way, you really have the information. Why capture and record? Obviously, for the metrics, it's so important to see where that comes from. Remember, you can't measure what you can't capture. You can't fix something if you don't know it's broken. And that is really not a lot on the sales side, but that really can weigh heavily on the service side. Remember what I said earlier. Your service advisor is your customer advocate. He or she is going to be talking to that customer for the next 3 years. and they should build a relationship with that customer. I know when I take my cars in, or I call my service advisor, and I tell them, you got an hour, you got 2 hours, can I come in, or what's the earliest can you get me in? We build a relationship, and I love when they know me. That makes me feel special, because we all want to feel special when we buy a car. Every successful business starts with the people that represent it. Monitor what your staff says about your business. I wanted to buy my wife a minivan, which obviously she hates, but she is I don't want to say a soccer mom, but she's a sports mom. Our kids play different sports. And there's a Honda dealer 4 miles away, but he didn't have the car, and I wanted to buy it immediately. So I drove 18 miles to another Honda dealership, and I just wanted it, if you guys, you probably know the product better than I wanted an SL. Honda SL, I think it was an SEL. And he's working on it, and he had one in the back, and he was pulling it up. But on the showroom, he had their top-of-the-line Touring. So, the sucker that I am, guess what I bought? I bought the Touring. I just liked all the bells and whistles, whatever. Anyway, 2 months later, I brought it back in, and the sales rep walked by me. I said hello to him. He said, what's up? And he kept walking. He didn't know me. Well, 3 months later, I went back in, and I saw him, and I had an appointment with the BDC manager to talk about what we do. And I told her. I said, you know, it's amazing. I think in Honda, I think the Touring is one of your top-of-the-line cars. That was my sales rep. I said hello to him every time I come in, and he walks by, and he doesn't even know me. Now, is that a good sales rep? I don't think so. Is he trained right? I'm not sure. But, you know, the customer should know, or we should know how the customer feels. We won't know that if you get a complaint without pulling a call. Or if you get a compliment, you want to share it. You know, I just want to let you know that Jack is a great sales guy. He really helped me out. You know, I had some questions after I got home about the bells and whistles of my car. Great guy. You know, I'd like to send that call to the owner of the dealership. He didn't call in on a tracking number. So, basic call recording. So that's what most dealerships use today. And here's what it's used for. It basically captures about 7% of all the calls. I mean, you know, somebody that's doing 30,000 minutes a month, they're using 3,000 minutes, it's 10%. But that's all it really captures. And that's pretty much, geared around what marketing you're using, whether it's autotradercars.com, the web, measures marketing campaigns. Most of those recordings are not retained very long. You want to listen to how well the salesperson handles a lead. That's where your sales trainers come in. That's the first thing they want to get to help the salesperson get better. Again, for performance and training. And like I said earlier, it should not train from a tracking number, even though that's what's being used today. Because tracking numbers do one thing. And I'll move my mouse. They measure marketing campaigns. You may put one for your service department, and it will measure that. But what we see from service, they all come in either from a local number or from the main number. And if 80% of the activity comes through that front door, you're not capturing it. Some dealerships do capture outbound calls. They have to dial a special code, which costs money. But again, if I was running a department, if I was running a dealership, not that I'm going to listen to 30,000 calls, but knowing that it's happening, and I have to pull the information, I want to monitor and drill down on specific departments or specific individuals to help them become better at the trade, there's no better tool than what can be attached or what's part of your phone system. And the problem with quality, sold in minutes. So many people complain it's too expensive, or I want to limit the use. I just want to say, open the floodgate. If the phone can ring and it's coming from marketing, never hinder that opportunity. Just let it flow. So many dealers have told me, I only want to limit it to this. And I go, why? The phone's ringing. That's the start of the process. Compliance recording. And I said I was going to talk a little bit about compliance. Records every extension in every department, including mobile. And I'll talk about how that happens. because most dealerships say, well, we're not capturing the mobile, and that becomes a big problem at the dealership. It makes everyone accountable. It improves productivity. Knowing that the dealership or the business, and this holds true, every law firm, every brokerage house, everything that revolves around a business wants to make sure they're compliant. Recordings are archived for years. You can pull a recording that somebody bought something from 2-3 years ago and listen to it, or if there's a complaint, which most people don't realize, but we get calls all the time. We've got a complaint. We've got an issue. Can you pull that recording for us? We want to make sure we were in compliance. We didn't say the wrong thing. A customer or a prospect calls in. The salesperson was rude. You want that at your fingertips. You want to avoid issues. Calls are securely stored. Recordings used to settle disputes, verify order approval, and verify PCI and HIPAA compliance. This is so important that it's happening now. FTC is forcing it. Remember years ago with voice blast or robocalls, people used to send out hundreds of thousands of calls weekly about promotions. Then it got killed. A big group got sued for millions. Now you can only use it for service or plates. And last but not least, people go, well, I'm embarrassed to say my system is 20 years old or 25 years old. Regardless, there's 4 or 5 different platforms. There's analog, which are, old, like me, like what you saw on my first slide. But 40% of dealers still have analog phone systems. Then you have digital or newer phone systems that are probably 10 to 15 years old. Then IP or VoIP. You have hosted, the ADP phone system, the Comcast phone system. It doesn't matter. The products can work regardless of the age of the system. Let's not let the phone system stop you from being successful. If the dealer or the owner doesn't want to update it because it works, that's fine. Doesn't mean you can't add on to it. So this is also really important compliance. I'm involved in a lot of these types of questions. This morning, a 24-store group contacted me about recordings from last April. They needed a call. I didn't ask for what. I just explained to them that they can go into the dashboard and how to pull it, which means we probably didn't do a very good training or we trained the wrong person. I don't know. But, sometimes you don't use it until you need it. So obviously you can set up filters and email alerts based on specific circumstances or scenarios to help you so you don't have to, log in all the time. But this is really important to me, and I think it's important to every dealership. If I told the dealer it only costs $1, everybody would buy it. So if it avoids conflict and it helps people come better at what they do based on that poll, this is where you should talk to your owners about moving. Second poll question.
Yes, sir. Okay, audience. Your second and final poll question of the day is on the screen right now. We'd love your participation. We want to know, would you like to capture the mobile calls and text messages for your sales calls and put them in your CRM? Please select one of the following answers. Yes, I see great value in that. Or yes, but I do have some concerns. How about I'm not really sure? The fourth answer is no, that doesn't sound like something that would work. Or the fifth answer, no, I don't see any value in that. We want to know what you think might be happening at your dealership. Would you like to capture the mobile calls and text messages for all of your sales calls and put them in your CRM? So is it yes, I see great value in that, yes, I have concerns, I'm not really sure, no, it doesn't sound like something we would do, or no, I don't see any value in that? Once we get a majority of those votes in, we'll close the poll and we'll share the results. And while we're waiting for those votes to come in, Jack, out of all of the calls that are made in a dealership in, let's say, a month, is there well, give me an idea. What percentage of the calls aren't recorded? I mean, including these mobile calls and text messages to customers. I mean, how many aren't recorded, do you think?
If they're not using a compliance system
Yeah.
or a total track system, 90%.
90?
Sure, because most of the dealerships today only track with their call tracking numbers, which only generate 7 to 10% of the activity at the dealership. So it's simple. If I'm selling 300 cars or I'm getting 30,000 calls a month, and I'm using 30,000 calls deliver 50 some odd thousand minutes, and I'm only using 3 to 5,000, that's 7%. And again, call tracking does one thing great. It tells the customer or tells the dealership how well my marketing is. We have dealerships that use call tracking, a single store, 300 numbers. Now, they sell a lot of cars because they're marketing mavens. But he then, the owner looks down and says, okay, this is working because we're getting, 10, 15, 20 calls. This isn't working because we're only getting 2 or 3 calls. It's not worth putting it in this marketing piece versus that marketing piece, whether it's this magazine or this local newspaper. They want to blanket it. So, to be honest with you, most of the things that happen at a dealership are not accountable. In other industries, it's 100% accountable. And hopefully today, everybody that's on the call grasps this information.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's see what they had to say. All right, audience, thank you so much for your votes. You guys rock. Let's share. Did I hit share? Okay, here we go. Let's share the results from this question. Okay, 45% of today's audience, the majority, said yes, I can see great value in that. 23% of today's audience said yes, but I do have some concerns. 32% of today's audience says I'm not really sure, and no one picked the last 2 answers. And I have to say, audience, when I heard this question that he was planning on asking, I said to myself, well, actually I said to Jack, well, who would go for that? Who would want all of their mobile calls and texts tracked? I wouldn't go for that, no matter what company I worked for, right? And so he showed me that it's like you get a second phone number, and so it's only off that second phone number that's your business phone number, but it goes to your phone, so you really have like 2 lines on your cell phone. That's how it does it. So it doesn't track all your calls and texts. It literally only tracks the calls and texts that come in or go out on your second line that you put on your phone, which is like a totally cool thing. I didn't know cell phones could get 2 phone numbers, but just so you know, that was my concern when I heard it too, and I'm with you. I would have concerns as well. But then once he showed me that, I was like, oh, well then that's kind of a no-brainer. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take up. Jack, please, continue.
I'm done. You did it all. You're awesome. You're hired. Tell the brothers I'm taking you. Sure. Thank you. I'm glad to hear the response. And the world is mobile now, and let's take a look. Mobile and SMS, and I've talked a little bit about it. You need to be compliant. Now, remember what I talked about the voice blast and the robocalls? Everything used to happen, and then the lawsuit came in, and now you can only use those calls for service. So you think about this. Using your mobile phone or sending out SMS is it's the frontier again, and the FTC is coming around real quick. Because the problem using a mobile phone, just having a sales rep use the mobile phone, so he's building an interaction between himself or the salesperson and the prospect, or the salesperson and the customer. The customer is no longer calling your dealership. He's calling the sales rep's phone. So that salesperson is building this great relationship, whether I stay at the dealership or not. If I move on, the customer is still going to be calling me. They're not calling the dealership. Taboo. Bad. How do we get that call also? Let's face it, as a salesperson, I'm held accountable into my CRM. How do we get those calls from mobile into the CRM? A salesperson is not going to sit there all day. He may have taken 20 or 30 calls and enter all that information in. So to me, and I tell this to dealers, we need to help you with that. First thing is that they should not be giving the dealership their mobile number, but they should be giving the dealership a mobile number that's associated with their phone that the dealership can manage. So if they leave or get fired, that number can be transferred to another salesperson. That number should also be a number that also, just like their phone at their store, should be tracked and recorded. For number one, not because we want to be Big Brother, but if we had to be Big Brother for compliance reasons or making sure we're saying the right things, we're covering ourselves as a business owner. So that's on the mobile phone. On SMS, the last piece down here where my mouse is capturing and record phones and SMS. SMS is tricky, right? Because SMS is the new frontier. Because when you're texting from your mobile phone to a prospect or a customer, there's no opt-in. And I will tell you, the FTC is keen on opting in. So the first thing that should happen is there should be a double opt-in that says, do you want to receive a call from Jack Behar? And when you respond back, yes. And the second, which is the double opt-in, says you can always opt out by spelling stop. To me, that covers everything that the FTC wants, because you don't want a sales rep sitting there texting away and did you receive my text? Did you receive my text? Did you receive my text? It happens. We send out about 2 million texts a week. And every now and then we look to see, and we do keyword searches. Did you receive my text? It's mind-boggling when we see somebody that sends it and then we see stop come back. So we know the system works. If the system didn't work, that guy or that salesperson is going to harass a prospect because that prospect probably wasn't ready to make a decision or just didn't feel like communicating back. It's almost like voice blast all over again. So compliancy is huge. Measuring and monitoring is just a small part of it, but it's great to have that information inside of your CRM. So on the right-hand side, here's a picture of the dealer's phone. So this is an iPhone. This is the native app. The green, obviously, and it's the same for an Android. The green's for my personal use, and that's my 203 number. But right next to it, next to my messaging, I have the business app, and it operates the same way. It opens up the same way. It dials the same way. It sends a text the same way. And I put it right next to it so I don't forget. I may forget the first 1 or 2 days, but we've seen in the hundreds of dealers that we've trained in the last 18 months, nobody forgets after the first day. They get it, especially when we tell them to put the icons right next to the regular native icon. And this is the call. It opens up, feels just like the native app, but the difference is it's accountable. The calls are recorded and tracked. The prospect dials that number. It's like my business line with me all the time. If I should get terminated, my extension goes to John, so does that phone number go to John. And those two apps become dead on my phone. So it really empowers both the sales rep to be productive, because I don't want it to, I tell salespeople, it's not that we're big brothering you, but we are making you productive. On the other hand, the dealership is capturing the information for their marketing and their analytics, making sure that the sales rep is working. So when I talked about lot lizards, the guys that hang out all day, especially in the South, when I went to buy my wife's minivan, I was in front of the dealership, 11 guys. I thought I was in a gang fight. I was like, guys, I'm okay. I'm going in. I happen to know somebody there. Thank you. They all surround somebody. Versus if they were using a tool like this that's integrated with the dealerships and the dealership CRM, now they become productive all day. And maybe then when we looked at that graph for outbound calling, maybe then that outbound calling will start rising, because that's what I always hear. They don't use the landline phone. Well, you're just opening it yourself. How are you measuring and monitoring the activity of your business? And this holds true in every industry. So I'm glad to hear everybody wants to do something. They're not sure. They have some concerns. Here's some food for thought. Small dealership, I won't say what state, just happened a month ago. Sales rep said, I'm not using my cell phone anymore. And it got bigger than it should have, but their attorney said he doesn't have to. If you're gonna hold them accountable for using their cell phone, you should pay either for the minutes used or for the phone. And mostly everybody's on a smartphone. It's all inclusive. It's not that much money, but it gives now obviously if you're paying for it, then it gives you the right to have those apps on the phone. If you still decide you don't want to pay for it, at least with the apps, they're not using their personal number. The information stays within the dealership. It's like having an extension. It's just like sending and receiving a call if I was sitting at my desk. I'm making them more productive. And there's nothing greater than driving into work because the prospect doesn't know my schedule, and I get that call that says I'm interested, I'm doing this, this, and this. I agree on the lease rate, and by the time I get into the dealership, that information is in the CRM, and I don't have to do much of anything. The call is there. I may have to just upgrade some of the notes, but I don't have to start from scratch. So with the mobile and SMS apps that are out there today, we're making them more productive. We're protecting the dealership. We're empowering them to communicate properly with the prospects, especially on SMS. Let's face it, everybody's on SMS. I have a 9-year-old that texts me everything now. Obviously, my wife, between both of our positions, everybody communicates on SMS. But when it comes to a business, the worst thing we can have is somebody harassing me when I walk into a dealership and I may want to buy this car, and I'm getting 15 SMSs from this guy all day when all I asked him to do was, do me a favor, text me the numbers and I'll get back to you. So this is a great way of giving them the tools that they need to be successful, but also protecting them. A lot of dealers tell me, well, we use the SMS in the CRM. So I go, okay, but if a sales rep doesn't have access to his computer all day, how's he communicating? And prospects do want to be texted to because they don't want to spend a lot of time on the phone. They're busy, or they're at work, or whatever the case may be. But it's got to be what I went back to about playing ball. It's got to be mutual. I'm throwing the ball at the prospect has to throw it back at me. We got to want to play together, and this is a great tool to help them do that. Call tracking, call recording, and compliant recording. Customer satisfaction. It's so much easier to sell an existing customer. In this slide, Derek Jeter, since he's retired, does work for us now. Took a call from Jack Behar. So obviously, we can listen and learn, help new sales people ramp up, customer advisors ramp up or improve what they're saying. Success is insight. A closer eye on the call that comes in and out of your business. Monitor your calls and track your success. Monitor performance, measure success. You got to have the right tools to be successful, and you got to use them. You got to find the time to use them. But to me, agent performance or sales performance or customer service performance, finance performance, we have dealers that have put systems in strictly to manage a specific department. We have just a quick scenario. We have one dealership sells over 800 cars, and they only care about measuring the BDC. I mean, that was their hot button. We want the BDC to make between 80 and 100 calls a day per person. And when we first installed it, the reps told the agents told the managers they were, but they were making about 35 to 40. They're doing it now. The report gets sent to everyone daily, so they're held accountable. They're working. So to me, the tool really helps. And again, everything comes back to what Ma Bell and her husband there, Alexander Graham Bell, started 2 centuries ago. This is a great slide. This is not my slide. It's right from Forbes. Keep executives tied to the voice of the customer. When I talk about having the ability to send a call to an owner, it's not that call tracking call that comes from marketing. It's the follow-up call or the call that comes in through the receptionist that gets transferred to either a sales or service advisor that you heard that was rated great or rated poor. Most companies are woefully and perhaps disastrously out of touch with the customers and prospects. How connected to the actual voice of the customer do you think your owner is, your CEO? And this was right out of Forbes. Now, I do know a lot of owners in automobile dealerships actually are in our system, and they listen, and whether it's our system or someone else's called tracking numbers, they do listen. But overall, they rely on management. But sometimes when the owner hears it firsthand, it's faster for them to make a decision because they're involved right away. When I worked in AT&T, I always engaged my supervisors in a lot of the things we did great and a lot of the things we did bad. A lot of the, I handled American Express, worldwide. I remember putting in, when they were putting in their travel centers, 7,000 ATM machines for their users to get money, and all the issues and all the complaints from their CIO. And I used to engage everyone so we can handle it appropriately. And a lot of times, owners, they're out of touch. And, this is a great way of bringing them back, especially if you want something else. Tools to improve phone success. Invest in your telephone system. Make sure there's an integration with the CRM. You don't have to buy a new phone system. You can invest into your current system. But to me, in the automotive industry, CRM for sales is golden. So it has to have that integration. Train your employees. So important, whether it's internal or external. Whether you do it through your management team, and if your management team is too busy, bring a great trainer in. Videotape them. Learn from them. Train the trainers, I always say. Monitor and record. Compliance is key. Whether it's a landline, mobile, or SMS, make sure they're all being used all day. First line, make sure those fingers are working. People shouldn't be outside just relaxing. You're paying them. You want them to drive sales. There's something they should be able to do. Utilize a service that can help monitor and notify missed opportunities. I think one of the questions on the poll was, how do we handle it all? Well, there's two ways of doing it. I mean, you could break down the filters, which we show dealers how to identify the calls that should be listened to. But there are other companies out there that do it for you, and they do a great job. They can selectively choose what needs to be done, and they notify you within an hour or 2 hours of missed opportunities or service issues. And, for what they cost versus what you spend, to me, it's peanuts on the dollar. Because everything on this slide is going to make you hit those double digits sooner than later. Oh, double-digit growth. It must be coming to an end of my slide. Follow the journey of the call. If I got a lead, I want to know where it started and where it ended. And I need to have the tools. I can't rely on my sales rep. If they lose a sale, there aren't too many sales reps that are going to say, hey, boss, I lost that one. They're too embarrassed. Versus, let's listen to why, and let's help you get better. Maybe there's something you don't know that we have to teach you. Maybe it's something you don't know about a specific vehicle, or you just need some sales training. When I went to a couple of dealers, when I was looking for that minivan, there was a big difference between a Toyota, a Sienna at the time, and a Honda minivan, and the Honda Odyssey. And literally, I asked both dealers, or both sales reps, to tell me, why yours is better, what does yours do differently. And I was amazed that they didn't know the key points. And it's all about educating them and training them and following that journey. Again, you don't have to do anything different today than you're doing right now, but if you follow the journey, you're going to find your strengths and your weaknesses of your salespeople. And if you got somebody really great that's a salesperson, guess what? Use them. Use their experiences. Set up alerts. I mean, the system will allow you to set up alerts based on, different criteria of a call or a service call. Monitor the reps. Who has the most defections? Who are losing the sales? I mean, if it's a round-robin basis, you've got to monitor. Number 3 goes back to number 1. If you can follow that journey either way, you're going to find your winners and your losers. There it is. Outbound calls should be a minimum of 6 times the amount of an inbound call. So if I'm getting 10 inbound calls, there should be 60 outbound calls being made. I know that even when I call an owner or a general manager, I've got to call. Send an email. What time are you available? We try all different aspects. Too many people rely on email. Email is the easiest way of not facing confrontation. And selling has nothing but confrontation because you're going to be faced with obstacles and objections. Again, identify that customer. And this gives you the opportunity to either save them or have a manager come in and contact them right away. This is important, especially if you have Total Track in the stores. Create 2 recorded call libraries to train staff. I tell this to every dealer, and we make sure this happens. One containing best practice calls in which the unsatisfied customer or prospect was persuaded to stay or bought, and the other containing poor performing calls in which the call was handled poorly, whether it's a prospect or a customer, sales or service, or even an administration of billing, and the customer did indeed defect. And people can listen to this. This is how we all learn. We listen to whoever it was that trained us. Back in the day, Zig Ziglar or Tom Hopkins or Brian Tracy, those are the guys that I used to listen to every day until I got it. And this is really good. I put, hold rapid-fire training sessions with all customer-facing staff to share positive and negative experiences with handling customer dissatisfactions. And that can also include handling, customer praises, customers that just, can't say enough about you, the referrals. But you don't have to change what you're doing. You just need to take what you have and take the data out of it and become really good at it. And it's starting from those 2 cans and a string that I played with when I was a kid. Takeaways.
Really? 2 cans and a string? Really?
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe the third poll question should be, how many of us growing up put that glass to our ear against the door expecting to hear that conversation that Mommy and Daddy were having? We all did it. Or, you know what? Right. Remember, I'm an antique. I'm that 1956 Chevy everybody wants to buy when they're looking at that new Corvette, that Z06 that Derek Jeter was working with. Follow the journey. Outbound calls should be 6 times as many as inbound. And in some dealerships they may, but we're not capturing it because we're not capturing that mobile. We have no idea what's going on. And God forbid, if I'm selling, a Toyota and I leave and I go sell Nissan and that customer calls me and says he's coming in and I turn around and say, hey, Mr. Customer, I just want to let you know I just left across the street. I'm over at Nissan. We have this great deal on a Maxima. Like for you to come in before you make your final decision. We've already built a rapport. We have a relationship. Dealer doesn't know because I'm gone. That's why mobile is really big and SMS is really big, but it's got to be controlled. You've got to be able to turn it on and turn it off. And when I mean hold everybody accountable, finance, accounting, parts, everybody that's a face of your company, a voice of your company that has an interaction should be held accountable. We have dealers that, will tell us, I will leave my CRM, but I've got to make sure your product goes with us. I really believe the service department, that's what always gets me. I can't leave. I'm on my 3rd minivan in 6 years. I can't leave this dealership. They're just great. And I tell my wife, she'll get I live in Texas, so she'll get an SUV or a truck when the kids are old enough. But as long as we're playing sports, we're a minivan family, and to me, the service department is the biggest key to a dealership. So here's my double digits. Train your employees. Take this to the bank. If you grow your dealership only by 5% a month, every month, start of the following year from when you start this program, you're starting at 60% of where you were a year before. So I'm not saying, hey, let's grow this business 15% every month or 20%. We have market climate. The last 3 days, the stock market's falling apart. People are buying. But if we can take our data and really empower it to help us become better, capturing everything that's going on, knowing that all these leads that are coming in are being worked with properly because we could follow that journey, that 5% is a minimum your dealership should be growing. This thing, your dealership should be blowing up. And the ones that do, that we talk to, do it because they follow the trail. And I'll tell you, when something's not working right, we'll get an email or we'll get a call because we know they live it, and we love hearing it. It's it may be an extension change, whatever it may be, but we know they're living it because we see their growth. When I talked to Dealer X, and I said, 6 months later, are you still selling 160 cars? And he goes, what? Yeah, we did that by the 15th because the system works. But there's a lot to that system. I hope I gave everybody a lot of information, maybe too much. And I guess I'm open for questions. So fire away.
Jack, thank you so much. It was a very thorough presentation. I really appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners do as well. Audience, if you haven't sent in your questions yet, well, now would be a perfect time to do so. Do you have a question for Jack Behar and about your telephone systems or what you need to do in order to set yourself up for growth in your dealership simply by, using your phone system properly? Then hey, write it on in. Let's get to those questions soon. I don't actually have a lot of questions for you, Jack, but we will get to the ones that we did get written in. Before we do that, though, we have a great giveaway. It's that time. If you missed it at the beginning of the webinar, I announced our good friends at Interactive Tell are giving away an amazing prize today on the webinar. One of you lucky webinar attendees will win a Hero 3 Plus GoPro digital camera. It's valued at $350. All you have to do is answer a simple question about today's presentation. So everyone, get ready. Saunter up to your keyboards, get those fingers nimbled up. It's time to go. Now, first one to write in the correct response is going to be walking away with this amazing prize today. Of course, I want to wish everyone good luck. You would have had to really been paying attention to get the answer to this question. All right, so hopefully you were paying attention. I would also like to ask if there's any vendors out there to please sit this one out. This prize is really only intended for dealership personnel. All right, audience, here we go. Good luck, everyone. How many calls does a dealership receive and make in a month if they're selling 500 cars in a month? Like I said, you would have had to have been really paying attention. How many calls does a dealership receive and make in a month if they're selling 500 cars in a month? We have a winner! I'm so excited! Only one person got the answer to this correct. Oh! Jeremy Jennings, you are our winner. Congratulations, Jeremy Jennings. I am inking your name on a piece of paper, which means you are definitely our winner today. Jeremy had the correct answer of 62,000 calls a dealership must receive and make in a month, on average, if they're selling 500 cars a month. Wow, Jeremy Jennings, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for playing along. I hope you had fun. Congratulations to our winner, Jeremy Jennings. Hey, Jeremy, why don't you write on in? Let me know what dealership you're from so we can give you a proper congratulations. And, of course, we also want to thank Interactive Tell for their incredible generosity. What a great prize. All right, Jack, we got some questions for you. We got a handful of really great questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, because, we joke about this sometimes. We call it, stump the presenter. But all right, here we go. Your first question comes to you from Elliot. He says, it sounds like the dealership would have to spend, business, cell phones, etc., and I would not want the dealership tracking my cell phone calls. But that being said, and we addressed Elliot's concerns after he wrote this question in, I should also point out. So the question really is, Jack, if a dealership has old phone systems, can they still get all these awesome, super cool recording features that you just talked about, without upgrading those phones, or do you really need to upgrade those phones?
Great question, Elliot. No, you don't have to upgrade anything at the dealership. But I think I said it earlier, if your system is even 25, 30 years old, as long as it's not two cans and a string, you can get this technology. So we love guys like you.
Did you hear that, Elliot? He loves guys like you.
Yeah, we do, because the dealer, it's working for them, so they don't need to upgrade, but this would enhance what they're doing, so they don't have to do what I call a forklift, take everything out to put something back in. So no, if you're running an analog system, which is, pre-2000, you don't have to do much.
I agree. Elliot, I hope that answers your question. Certainly, if you have a follow-up question, don't be shy. You can always write on in. I will take all questions from everyone. Okay, let's get to our next question, which comes to you from JJ. He says, who at the dealership typically compiles and measures this data? Is it the internet manager, the sales manager? Who takes all this data and does wonderful stuff with it, Jack?
That's an awesome question.
I told you I had some good ones.
It really is, because there's so much data. So let me start by saying there's two ways of doing it. So the sales manager, the general manager, or I should say the sales manager, really cares about his department. So one of the components of the technology is that you can, if you have a marketing department, they're the ones that should do it. But if you don't have a marketing department, then you assess filters into the system, and the filters will do 90% of the work. The filters will break down just about everything that we talked about. How many inbound, how many outbound calls, by department, by individual, by marketing campaign. So let's just use that 500 cars, for instance, that has 62,000 calls. At the end of the day, 90% of it is delivered to your fingertips whenever you want it on any given day. We have stores that have 27 to 30 different rooftops, and their BDC manager looks at it and literally probably an hour's time has a good handle, because most of it is compiled for them. We thought about that a long time ago. It's great to have all of this information, or is it too much information? Is it overload? But it's broken down. But if you have a sales manager, a service manager, whether you have a BDC or not, a finance manager, administration manager, and HR, each department can have their own set of filters and tools. And then the compilation would be if there's a meeting with the owner, somebody just compiles it all, or the system will compile it for you. We try to make it really easy for you, so it's not, it doesn't take a lot of time, nor does it take a lot of work. I hope that answered the question, JJ.
JJ, if you have a follow-up question, hey, you can send it on in. All right, we're going to get to this last few questions over here. As a matter of fact, Jeremy Jennings, who was our winner today, he wrote in. He's so excited about winning the camera. Thank you so much. I'd be excited too, Jeremy. Okay, but he also had a question for you. He wanted to know, do you have more information about the journey of the call? He wants to, you used that term earlier, Jack, and I guess he wanted an explanation of what the journey of the call is.
Sure, absolutely. So the system will tell you, let's just assume I called in from AutoTrader. Jack Behar called in from AutoTrader, and it got signed over to John Smith. So that's where it started. It started with AutoTrader. So every time John and Jack talk, that develops the journey. And that can be me, Jack calling John, John calling Jack. They're calling cell phone. They're calling in from the main number. So the system, anything that takes place on the phone or through the phone system will get tracked by the ANI, by the phone number or the phone numbers that are associated with that prospect. So you will have a complete history. And what you'll see are, when I talk about 6 times to reach a prospect, you'll see that. and you'll see where the sales rep will make 4 or 5 outbound calls, and you'll see they were less than a minute long because they hang up because they got voicemail, and then eventually the prospect calls back in and you see that 10-minute call. That's the meat and potatoes that I'm talking about that you want to listen to. So yes, the journey starts with however that customer started by either a marketing lead or walked in through the front door. The moment you capture that phone number. Now, the journey also can start without them calling, right? They walk in and they give you that phone number. As soon as you put that number into the system, we can start tracking that. And it doesn't have to be, the tracking number, but I walked in and you took my information, you scanned my driver's license, and you called me back. As long as that information is in your system, the first time you call that person back, which means they didn't call in from one of those tracking numbers, the journey starts. We're on that journey, and we're gonna come down that mountain and find out either we're winners or losers by either we sell or we didn't sell the vehicle.
Thank you so much. Great answer. All right, Jeremy, I hope that helped you out. And, are you showing us something?
You know what, real quick, before we answer the next question, here's a dealership, and I just wanted to show you guys, these are the calls they receive. So those numbers that I put up there, those are real numbers. These are calls. And you can see.
Those are total calls, or those are just outbound calls, inbound calls? What are they?
Just total calls for the month. I mean, obviously, we can break it down, and I don't want to spend a lot more time. I just wanted to show you that, this dealer had a high in April of 65,000 calls. In September they have 42,000 calls. I just wanted to show you guys the information is pretty accurate. I mean, if that phone is capturing something, we've got it.
Gotcha. Okay, let's get to these last couple of questions. Got a great question from Patrick. Patrick says, is it common for the tracked calls to have a noticeable lag? Oh, that would annoy me. So if you're recording calls, can you tell they're being recorded? I mean,
no.
Is there a lag? Is there, beeping? Is there anything?
So most dealers have a recording on their main number that says, all calls at this dealership are monitored for quality assurance or recorded for quality assurance. But it's seamless. Just like this webinar is being recorded, there's no lag. Your voice comes out beautiful, mine doesn't. Just one of those.
One of those. All right, last question comes to you from William. Hi, William. William says, well, it's actually a two-part question. He says, are the call tracking numbers textable numbers, and can you track local numbers? Excellent question, William. So do they all have to be 800 numbers, or can they be local numbers, and can you text from them?
Okay, I'm going to try to answer this without, and don't, nobody knows that I'm sitting in a seat that she set up that has a shock treatment if I say the wrong thing, because this is an informative webinar, not a selling webinar. So I'm actually going to jump out of my seat so I don't get shocked. But the answer is, we track both. So we can track 800 in local. We also empower 800 for SMS. So that's a great question. I don't know too many companies that do that, actually, that have 800 numbers that are SMS enabled. Some companies do local, but we do both. So I hope that answered the question. So it's great for marketing. Call us or text us at 800-555-1212, and that is, as you're well aware, the Y generation lives on texting. So it'd be great if they text you on that 800 number, captures it into the CRM, and then the journey starts and goes from there. So great question. That's an awesome question.
William, thank you so much. Apparently, you have an awesome question. And Jack, you had an awesome presentation. Congratulations. That was wonderful. So glad we got to spend this time today together. Would you like to say thank you to the audience? Because we're going to sign off now.
Yes, I would. I just really, sincerely, I don't do a lot of webinars, as Elena said. She had to twist my arm. I'm kind of a shy guy, but if you ever want any information, or you want me to help you, or you got questions, my information is up there. We've done analysis for dealers just on helping them without selling them or anything. But the most important thing I want to say is thank you so much for allowing me this hour and 20 minutes to talk to everyone. I don't know if I do a good job or a bad job. She's going to tell me I was great. It's really important if you can let her know how I did, because I have no clue. I was shaking as much as I can possibly shake in the first 5 minutes. But thank you so much. I hope the information was informative. If you have any questions you want to take offline, fire me up. I'd be happy to ask. And most important, I'd like to thank you, Ilana, for putting this together, thanking Dealer On. Awesome. I'm glad now I'm in the mix with all those great presenters that you have. Thanks so much, everybody.
You're so sweet, Jack. Thank you so much. And audience, if you do have a question for Jack, honestly, he is real easy to get a hold of and sweetest guy, obviously, as you can tell on your own. Now, we're going to be buttoning up the webinar. I want to let you know again, we did record this webinar. If you'd like, you can check out this webinar, which is going to be posted at dealeron.com/webinars. All you have to do is go there and click on the link on the right-hand side for on-demand webinars. You can also check out any of our upcoming webinars or access any of our past webinars too. And, you know, this webinar is going to close in just a moment, and when it does, you're going to get a survey. So as Jack said, he wants to know how he did. We'd love it if you'd fill out a very, very short survey and let us know, what did you think of today's presentation? And Jack, he would like to be judged.
I would.
Yeah.
If you want to contact me, feel free to. I'd love to work with your dealerships. I'm going to stick my teeth. Shot.
You can go to the next slide so that they can see, yes, you're going to get a survey. So fill it out. We're always looking for your feedback. And we're going to randomly select a couple of people from today's completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. So let's do that, okay? Hey, by the way, I want to let you know, invitations will be going out tomorrow for our next webinar. And you know what? It goes quite handily with today's webinar. It is your first and second step toward a great sales process. Fact. Your CRM is the foundation of your dealership's sales process. Regardless of which CRM you have, with the right CRM data organization and data entry from dedicated dealership employees, you can turn a ho-hum sales process into a great sales process, which means huge profits. However, most dealerships underutilize, mismanage, or dismiss their CRM, which ultimately prevents them from realizing maximum results. Are you one of them? Well, guess what? Bill Phillips, founder, president, and CEO of AIM Automotive Internet Management, is here to help. He is an expert in CRM data organization, and his exclusive techniques have been producing swift and dramatic results in dealerships across the nation for more than a decade. In this fast-paced one-hour webinar, he is going to discuss how to increase efficiency of your lead management, allow you to follow your processes more effectively, simplify your ability to manage e-commerce business, and ultimately increase sales and closing ratios without losing gross. Wow, that sounds really awesome. So if you're ready to maximize your revenue by taking the first and second step toward a great sales process, then you simply can't afford to miss this amazing presentation. Don't forget, Dealer On's weekly webinars are held Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We have some really great webinar subjects planned for 2014, but if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding these webinars and our topics, please feel free to contact me directly. Again, my name is Eliana Raggio. I'd love to hear from you. I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. I'm on all the automotive social networks, so track me down online or email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today, and I hope to see you all in a continuing education series. Have yourselves a good one.